Hello, friends from ChangePA. State Representative Danielle Friel Otten here from Chester County, also a 2018 ChangePA champion. Here today to wish you well. I hope you are able to stay home, that you are staying healthy, that you are staying safe, and that you are managing well through this crazy and strange time that we're in the COVID-19 crisis. And I also wanted to lift up to you and thank you for the work that you do, and maybe tell you a little bit about why it's so important. Democrats are currently 9 seats away from winning the majority in the Pennsylvania state legislature. What does that mean? What would be different? What would be different right now if Democrats were in the majority? Well, I can tell you this. Republicans are currently in the majority. And so Republicans set the agenda because that's how it works. And we have talked over the last 2 weeks about nothing but an unfettered reopening of the economy. It's been about making, whether it was last week when we talked about just completely reopening the economy with no standards, no requirements, no enforcement mechanisms to make sure that people are following guidelines like the CDC guidelines, if that's even the right guideline to be following. No data, no medical guidance, just reopening the economy, and letting business owners decide how they're going to protect the public health and safety. It doesn't make me feel so great. I'm sure that doesn't feel like a good plan to you either. Democrats fought back. We defended our governor. We defended Dr. Levine, who's been doing a tremendous job of guiding us through with sound medical and public health advice as we face an unknown threat. And what would be different if Democrats were in the majority? Well, the things that Democrats want to talk about are making sure that we have guidelines for employers for how they're supposed to protect their employees and their customers. So whether that's requiring personal protective equipment, whether that's having hand washing requirements and enough time for cleaning, standards for sanitation and cleaning, making sure that our workplaces and our public spaces are as clean and healthy as possible for our communities in the face of a highly contagious virus. Making sure that workers who do have to go back to work have the ability, if they were to get sick, to take paid time off, so that we don't have a workforce where people feel that they have to go to work when they're sick because they can't afford to put a roof over their head and food on their plate. Democrats want to be talking about living wages. How do we make sure that people have a living wage? So many of the workers that are working on the front lines of this crisis make $9 an hour, when in places like Chester County, just to put a 2-bedroom apartment roof over your head, you would need to make $19 an hour to survive. Democrats want to be talking about how we serve small businesses and how we get help to the mom and pop shops in our communities who actually pay taxes in Pennsylvania, who support our local little leagues, and who are thriving members of our communities who stay here and their money stays here, instead of getting government assistance to multi-billionaires like we've seen recently in the rollout of some of the CARES Act. And we want to see people-focused legislation. We want to see people put first, because what we know is that when we have people who thrive, we have an economy that thrives, right? Like when people can afford to put a roof over their head, when they can afford to stay home and when they're sick, they can afford to be consumers, they can afford to be out there participating in our economy, and happier workers, healthier workers make for healthier, happier, more thriving businesses. And so putting people first is really what the Democrats' agenda has been. And while we're doing a really great job of fighting back, we play defense really well. We'd like to go on the offense and And we'd like to go out there and we'd like to actually pass some of these important pieces of legislation to protect people first. And so I want to say thank you, because all of the work that you do to get people like me across the finish line, that's the kind of work that's going to make the real structural change that we need to be able to move the ball forward.